How do we become the leaders, the visionaries, and the high-powered entrepreneurs that we were destined to be? That is the question, and this podcast gives us the answers. My name is Ben Gerster, and welcome to the Rise and Repeat Show. All right. Hey, welcome to the Rise and Repeat podcast, where we explore the entrepreneurial journey. Today, we're talking with Dave Panozzo of the Pazzo team. Dave, you're a total badass in the real estate space. Super pumped to have this conversation. Thanks for coming down to chat with me.
Thank you for having me to your humble abode.
Of course. So, Dave, I want to just kind of have an open dialogue and chat through your entrepreneurial journey, like where it starts, kind of how you built to where you are now. Obviously, you're running a killer team in real estate out here in Scottsdale, Arizona, but you're also venturing into the coaching space. So I know you're just constantly recreating, constantly
Yes.
pushing the boundaries on your entrepreneurial skills. So, like, just take us back to the beginning, like, of where the entrepreneurial journey started for you. I want to make sure the audience kind of knows you a little bit more in your background.
Yeah. It goes back. I don't think I've ever told this story. Goes back to when I was in the military and I knew I was going to get out. Okay. I was talking to a buddy back in Columbus, Ohio. I go, dude, when I get out, we're going to start a landscaping company.
So you're plotting already. You already had it in you.
I was like, I want to do something for myself. And obviously that didn't happen, but that bug like bit me early on in life. Yeah, I did the typical stuff. Listen, I grew up in the 70s and stuff. So, raking leaves, cutting lawns, that type of stuff. I had always been doing, okay? So went in the military, got out, did a bunch of different things, got the opportunity. One of my first businesses, Take in Mind, all this shit failed. Like, fail.
The true journey.
Okay. Like, there is no success story, okay? Just a lot of hard work. But, early on, I got involved with a couple different business partners and things like that, things didn't work out. The intention was always there, but it just never worked. And so, I kind of got to this point to where my wife had been an agent for 14 years. I ran the gamut on about 19 different things. And it came down to, you know what? I think I'm going to get my real estate license. She's like, oh, hey, great idea, honey. Now, take in mind, she was harping on me for about 10 years prior to that. You should get your license. 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 And it just got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to get my license.
Finally accepted the call.
Yes. Yes. And got my license, started figuring stuff out. And then it just it hit me. I'm like, ooh, this is something I can actually, wrap my brain around. Like I started to understand. And I think prior to that, with all the different sales jobs that I had, because listen, at the end of the day, what people need to realize, sales is in every.
It's in every single business.
You could be a priest. There's sales and priests.
100%.
Doctor, post office. Listen, it's sales. It's the ability to be able to communicate with people and to be able to get your point across and have people understand. That's that next level of communication. And so, as we started going down this road, I was like, shit, I'm doing really good at this. Then we started getting some lead services, and then it was like, oh, well, we have too many leads, and now we're going to need some agents. And then it's just all of a sudden one thing led to another. And this team started building over time. And then also we were kind of like, holy cow, we're doing all this out of our house, Monday meetings, Thursday trainings at our house. And it got to a point to where it started getting so big that we had to move into an office. And now we've been in an office for 3 years. And it's, this gradual change, okay, of going through the ups and downs and all the craziness with market conditions and people quitting and people hiring. And I mean, it's all of it wrapped up
Seems
into
like
one.
a challenging business, right? I mean, you're really relying on people 100% in that business. I mean, the product is essentially, yes, it's real estate, but really your game is making sure you've got a team of people that are performing.
100%.
And they're all almost entrepreneurial in a sense too, right? Because they're independent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, like, when you talk to someone in terms of like your business and they've never been a business owner, that sounds cool. But most agents, let's face it, they work from home, they go work out, they stay in the workout gear all day long, they act like they're working, and they think they own their own business. Now, some take it to a whole other level, okay? I'm not saying this is across the board, but again, people that work from home, okay, sometimes you're a little more relaxed. Like we're in an office setting. The vibe here is completely different than if you would have been if we would be in a home,
Right,
okay?
right.
And so again, taking that mindset to another level in terms of, hey, it's up to me to make this happen is very difficult for people that have been on a job, different careers and things like that. And then they come into the real estate world and then people talk to them in terms of, hey, this is your business. You run your business the way you want to, and blah, 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 blah. Well, if you are an okay employee, you're going to have a bad business.
Yeah, 100%.
You can't just be an okay business owner. Okay business owners don't make it.
So that transition for you as you go into getting your license, building this team, like for most entrepreneurs, there's this obvious transition in the mindset, right? Where, some of us feel like we kind of grow up with it, right? It sounds like you tried to start a lot of businesses and you were dabbling in that. But for you stepping into running it, and as you're talking about these other people in the space that don't necessarily embody that initial, like just self-driven entrepreneurial spirit, right? They're kind of almost, I see a lot of people that just get comfortable, right? They get really comfortable
Yep.
with making a little bit, or the market's really good and it's kind of easy, right?
Yep.
But for you, what do you think the biggest thing has been to drive like your 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 vision as an entrepreneur in building this team, really transitioning into like running your own thing?
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's no rules in business. Okay. It's you do whatever it takes. Obviously, you want to do things ethically, morally correct and be a good person at heart, but what people don't realize is you have to do whatever it takes. And no boss has ever said that to an employee on the job,
Right.
okay? So that's where things get confusing, I think, for sometimes people coming from the job world and then getting into 100% commission.
Right.
uh, that's a new ball game. I always have this saying, and when people say, "Oh yeah, I was in sales," I'm like, "Oh really? So what kind of sales?" "Oh, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Oh great. Did you also have a salary?" "Well, yeah, you were in sales."
Right.
See, until you are 100% commission, that's when you find out who you really are.
Yep.
Okay, because anyone that has a salary, you can fall back on your salary. Now, your boss probably won't allow that to go on for more than 2 or 3 months, and you'll get, because you're not doing any sales. But, to have that safety net underneath you of a salary, you're not going to push yourself to that next limit or push yourself to a point to do what it takes to get a sale.
Yeah. So how do you keep yourself motivated? I know that a lot of us, like you mentioned, when you don't have a salary, every dollar is what you're earning yourself. But what I've seen in entrepreneurship is it's easy to get really excited about a goal, right? And we work really, really hard on it. But then inevitably, either we hit the goal and we kind of plateau and like that endorphin rush and the dopamine of it all kind of falls off. Like, how do you keep yourself super, super engaged, whether the times are really good or they're not really good in the business?
Well, I think in the past I've learned my lesson because in 2008 my wife and I we lost everything. Okay. Um we leveraged ourselves with real estate. So it wasn't that we were living the high life of, oh, let's go buy the fast cars and go on the big vacations. Like we were trying to leverage ourselves with real estate because we knew on paper that, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road that would have put us in the right position. Well, that got completely pulled out from underneath us. Okay. And when something like that happens, that's a wake up,
It's huge.
that gets you kind of like, "Eh." So ever since then, my wife and I, we said to one another, we will never, ever, ever let that happen again.
And just being over leveraged in something, or what do you think the big key learning you took away from that
Um,
was?
well, being over leveraged is one thing, okay? But number two, on paper, it looked great. The paper looked good,
Yeah,
but I couldn't take the paper and deposit that in the bank,
sure,
okay?
sure.
Because we were, we had loans and this and that and the other. And so, the outcome would have been put us in a really good position. So it just made me realize nothing lasts forever. Okay. And so when the getting's good, you keep pushing. You don't let up.
Yeah,
And so that's been our mindset ever since that happened is even when you have those rock star moments, okay, you can go in the closet and clap for yourself, but you're going to come back out and be just as hungry. And I think that when you have those big wins, those victory laps are dangerous.
yeah.
Yes, it's okay to pause and be like, okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's get back in there
Boy,
because
I
you
think
don't
that's
know when
so
it's going to
valuable.
stop.
That's so valuable. I mean, I think that I see that all the time where people kind of get comfortable in their wins and they're not looking at, hey, this may not last forever,
Correct.
or they kind of pull off of the gas and kind of coast in
Yep.
those moments. And that's typically where some of the most vulnerability is when you're in coast mode and you're not in attack mode on your business.
Well, number one, you get relaxed, you get complacent, you're not pushing because you got that little cushion. Maybe you came off a great month, whatever the case may be. I deserve that. I worked hard. All these things that you tell yourself. Well, if you're a person that has never lost everything and someone's giving you that advice, you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like, yeah, you touch the stove, it's going to burn you. Yeah, I hear you. But you do it anyway. Well, shame on you
Yeah.
because that's someone giving you advice from experience.
So that's really interesting because, sometimes it's our biggest like failures that really shape the way that we have our biggest wins, right? It's like
100%.
we learn something really, really important. We have to touch the stove. I mean, like it's part of it. I think a lot of times we're always trying to avoid failure and it's natural to not seek
Right.
failure, right? But for you coming out of that, what do you think the biggest like what was the biggest change that happened going through that failure, quote unquote?
Well, number one of our biggest issues was we had no mentors or coaches in our back pocket during those times. We white knuckled that shit. Okay. Big mistake
Yeah.
because 20, 25 years ago, the coaching thing or the mentor or just having that close person that was kind of like our look, someone that we looked up to. We didn't have that. And that was probably one of our biggest mistakes in hindsight and looking back. Like we did all that just ugh.
Oh my goodness. I've been there. What's crazy about that is, when I first thought about coaches, I always thought, okay, well, they've got the answers, right? And they're gonna tell me exactly like a consultant would.
Correct.
This is what you do. But the reality is most of what I've taken from coaching is simply another third party's voice that's not as emotional about my situation
Right.
as I am, that can help me see a different perspective at the situation and hold some accountability to like, no, 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 no. We're not gonna like sit in that for this
Yeah.
long. No, no, no. We're gonna go ahead and move forward. And our best bet is probably this direction. It's fascinating that as people, we're kind of our own worst enemies,
1,000%.
right? Like the doubt we get into, the cycles of how we look at a situation, right? Like you can sit in something for years and not make progress without some form of intervention that points you.
And that's what happened. That's what happened. So, '08 happens. We were in the shitter for 3, 4, 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, oh, victim mentality.
Defeated.
If it wasn't this, it would have been that. And these people wronged us and all this stuff. None of it had anything to do with us. See, and that's when the reality comes in is that when you can look in the mirror and be like, okay, Ben, stop BSing around. It's you. that's when the real work then begins.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you don't have someone to call you out, well, then is it gonna you're gonna be in my shoes. Is it gonna take you years? And that was dumb. That was really stupid.
Yep. I did that in running the agency for a long time. I just didn't know any better, and, oh my goodness, me versus me, like, we grew by such a low percentage during some of these years that I was just in decision paralysis on, I don't know if that's the right move. Should we do that? No, I don't know. Let's just kinda coast and see," and trying to be really careful about what I was doing, and, oh my goodness, the second that I got a coach involved, it was like, "No, we need to make decisions now. You lose that client, this whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
Like, we need to actually build something that's smarter than this." It was game changing. We grew so fast in the year following just having the forcing function.
Geez, look at that.
I know. It's wild. It's wild. So now you're working in the space of coaching, and it seems kinda natural because you're working with your own agents, and you're coaching those agents, and you're helping them build essentially their own
Yeah.
businesses. So, what's that transition been like for you? How are you seeing, like, the transfer of what you've been doing in real estate into coaching?
Well, what's interesting is that, yeah, for the last 9 years, every Thursday, I'm training our agents. I'm talking about different market conditions. Here's what to say when you're dealing with the seller. Or here's what you say when you're dealing with all these things. And it was kind of like this natural progression that well, this makes total sense.
Yeah.
How many other people can I help? Right? Because listen, the money comes, right? It's not a money grab. It's just when you do the right thing, the money will follow, okay? And so for me, it was like I wanted to be I wanted to challenge myself to that next level. Okay, if I can do it for these people, who else can I do it for
Right.
that needs my help?
Right.
And so it was a natural progression that one thing led to another. And it's like my wife and I looked at one another and, we have this thing. I'm not allowed to say the B word, bored. Because what happens is when things are moving smoothly and you have that flow, that's consistency paying off for you,
Yeah.
okay? And when you get really consistent, things will fall into place.
Yeah.
And so things were falling into place, and I was kind of like, okay, everything's running good. Okay, let's start a new business. And so that's where the coaching piece came into play and the training. And so, I've been experiencing it's like I'm a new guy all over again in a new industry. And it's very humbling, number one. Number two, very difficult in the sense of, there's a lot of other gurus out there in the space and everyone's claiming fame and so on and so forth. But I know deep down inside, I'm doing the right thing, whether it's one client at a time, two clients at a time, whatever that may be. I know I'm on the right path. It's just kind of cool to recreate at this point in my life because most people in their late 50s, they're starting to kind of like checking their clock on, hey, another 5, 10 years. I'm going to start
They're already coasting.
I'm going to start laying low. I don't want to disrupt anything. I don't want to take any chances or risks. And my wife and I are like, we already know what it's like to lose everything. So we have that as a backstop. Okay. We know
100%.
that feeling. And so if you don't have that feeling or if you've never been through that, well, everything's a risk, right? It's just another move.
And you've had your own coaches, and so, for me, same thing where it's like, the power of what that can mean for somebody else, and being able to give them that kind of insight and help them watch other people take some of these big growth steps has gotta be so rewarding. And I'm sure you're not even just working within the real estate space, you're broader than that because those principles are pretty universal to anybody that's in building their own business.
Yeah, the small business owner or someone that is, has one or two, three employees, like everybody, okay, the principles and things that we do at the real estate level that can apply to pretty much anything, any business, right? And it's the basic 101s, which is cool because that's the true entrepreneur spirit, right? It's like this one guy gets an idea, then he starts doing something, then he starts selling a product or whatever the case may be. like we all get stuck somewhere,
Yep.
and it's cool to help people grow to that next level and then the next level after that, and just to
100%.
see the growth.
No, it's radically awesome. So, obviously, you're super fit, dude, like, you've got fitness on lock. Talk a little bit about how that plays into what you do in business. Like, what's the relationship of fitness to entrepreneurship?
Well, I will tell you, in 2014, I was going through like a weird little period. My wife and I, we just got back together. We were separated for a while, almost divorced. Um, we just went through like a really dark phase, and here we are. Everyone's back together. We're doing okay, but I'm like, there's something missing. I'm like, I was still pointing. There was still some finger pointing going on. Okay, and I'm like, I have to get this figured out. And still, no coaches, no nothing, no mentors. I'm still in white knuckle Dave mode. Okay. And I started journaling. Now, take in mind, most people journal about all the good shit.
Right. Right.
Mine was all the bad stuff. So each day I would write my journal what was wrong with me. Okay. It's so crazy. It started in
And you
October.
still have those journals?
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude.
Oh my gosh, that's gotta be amazing.
So I think the first journal entry was like at the beginning of October of 2014. Woke up late, not sure what's going on with me. Next day, woke up late again. Like the first dozen entries were just like, I'm talking, like I was talking to me like you would a 17-year-old kid that like screwed up. You know what I mean?
Dude,
Like
you were calling yourself out,
I,
man.
I
You
was
were
that hard. Okay. But then after a while, I'm like, okay, so I'm not able to get up in the morning. So like my journal entries would start it. Like I'd put the day, the date, and then the time. Like I was doing journal entries at 8:30 in the morning, 9:30, 10:05 a.m. Like that's when I was getting up. Like I was probably depressed. Who knows? But I knew there was something wrong. So about, I don't know, later in that year, I started getting more consistent. The entries were now like 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30, 6 o'clock. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't having that big break in the morning, or that late, morning wake up time. Then I started getting a little more serious about fitness, and I think in 2015, 16, I started doing my first meal preps, like actually doing meal prep. And so, I was gradually starting to get into it to a point to where 2 years, 3 years of like reading these journal entries, you can see this complete change in the person to where now it's like that is standard issue. Like my regiment in terms of how I get up in the morning, what I do in the morning, how I work out, my meal prep, how things are prepared, like it's all done for me so that I don't have to think about it. And what happens is that decision fatigue, okay, when you have to think too much,
yeah.
that's where it blows you out of the water. And I'll share this with everyone. They'll be like, this dude's weird. But I literally will have my alarm clock on my phone. I plug my phone into the bathroom. So then that way I can't just like, hit the snooze button.
You gotta get up and walk
I
across.
have to get up, turn it off. Next to my phone, I have a big glass of water, chug, 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 chug. Then on the floor, I have my workout clothes that already laid out.
It's a system.
No thinking whatsoever. So by that time, okay, well, now I'm standing there, I'm awake.
Yep.
Then I go in the kitchen, do my prayers, do journaling. I read a little bit. Like, and all that takes 15, 30 minutes. Like, it's not like this is like a 4-hour ordeal, okay? Then by that time, I've done that piece. I'll check up on a couple emails and stuff, and then I go to the gym, come home, shower, and then I hit the office. Like that is standard issue. And here's the thing, I do that every single day. Like there's no on the weekends I get to sleep in.
You've got that every single day, 7 days a week.
I don't go in the office Saturday and Sunday.
But your morning doesn't change.
But my morning does not change. And the reason why is this. What I was finding, and I learned this by mistake, I would sleep in an extra 2 hours. Well, you sleep in an extra 2 hours, what happens at night?
Stay up an extra 2 hours.
So then all of a sudden Monday rolls around, it's kicking my ass,
Yeah.
okay? So I found if I'm not consistent across the board, I'm gonna waver, okay? So I wanna stay consistent all the time.
Dude, I love that. That, like, reminds me, I was thinking about it, like, in business, you have to constantly be ready for, like, the high stress spikes that come because 'cause they're gonna come out of nowhere. Something's gonna pop up out of nowhere, and it's amazing because if our response system isn't trained to be ready to respond to those high pressure points, what I see is it's really easy to fall into like, okay, well, that seems really difficult. Let's just find the easy way out of this. Right. And it's almost like you think about an MMA fighter, right? And they have to train
Yep,
all the time, 6 months, right? Endurance training, all just obsessively training. And they're training for essentially like 20 seconds
right,
of a fight that they could be too fatigued. And that's all it's going to take
yep,
for them to lose that
yep.
match, right?
They bring their hands down just enough because 'cause
Just
they're
enough,
tired.
just enough.
Bam.
So they have to they have to push themselves in peak training mode, right? To just be prepared for these little moments. And it's almost like that, right? Like if you're not consistent, then it's those little moments that are gonna take you out of that routine, and all it takes is a week where you miss,
Yep,
and that can turn into 2 weeks, it turns into 3
yeah.
weeks, right? And then also, like, having that kinda discipline in the morning, that's gotta set you up for how you're running your day, right? Like, your actual coming into the office, the energy you bring your team. Talk a little bit about that, like, how does fitness actually translate to the way you're leading? Like, do you
Well,
see a connection there?
1000% because see that morning my mornings, regardless of what goes on during the day, does not change anything in my life. So what happens is that let's call it the first 2, 3 hours of the day, like that's my time. There isn't a client, employee, my wife, nobody can mess with that
Nobody owns that.
because that's my time. No one's blowing my phone up at 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock. And if they are, there's something really wrong. Guess what? I'm gonna be there going, "Good morning." They're like, "You're awake?" "Yeah, I'm awake. What's up?" You know what I mean? So that piece in the morning is my time. That's why I always have sometimes parents, moms or dads that are on the team, like, "I just don't have any time. I don't have any time." It's I have to cater to everyone and this and that. I'm like, "Could you get up an extra hour early and give yourself an hour of time to yourself?" Because I remember what it was like when my wife and I were working regular jobs and we were on that treadmill of life and work and all that. We didn't have time. Well, I didn't have the skill set, but I've seen others put that into their life and they're like, "Oh my God, it's completely changed me." Now I do have that time in the morning where I'm by myself. No one else is messing with me. The kids aren't asking for this. The kids aren't bugging me. My husband's leaving me alone because they have this set time in the morning. And so by having that set time and then the physical fitness piece of it, of getting in the gym and doing those things, like, dude, there's nothing that is gonna get my way. Okay. Cause that is my stress relief that keeps me balanced and it keeps me focused throughout the day. So being able to have that endurance, the physical fitness piece, yeah, do I get stressed? Sure. But does it kick my ass? No,
Right.
because I'm physically fit, right? When you're out of shape and you're fat and you're not eating right, that stress will get a hold of you and put you in a chokehold and you can't tap out. That's typically when you start getting sick, you get run down. I have a bunch of buddies like that, the doctor's like, "Hey, listen, you're going to need to do some life changes here, or else you're not going to see your kids graduate high school, or let alone even get a chance to meet your grandkids."
Yikes.
And that's a massive wake up call.
Yikes. I mean, it's interesting too. Like for me, it's weird because fitness is obviously important for those reasons, right? But it's almost like I get to set up a morning. I do a morning similar to yours, but I get to get wins before I even come in for the day, right? And I kind of gotten to the point where, I can give myself those wins. It is hard. It is
Yeah.
hard to wake up at 4 a.m. The alarm goes off. Every time that alarm goes off, I don't want. It's natural. That's just the way the first 2 minutes of the alarm going off is one of the most hilarious conversations you will have with yourself, right? It's like this, like you coming up with new things, reasons why.
The old version of you is like, "Hey, Ben,
Dude,
dude, you've really been working hard.
you don't need to get up today.
Just go ahead."
It's just today. You can just take today off. I mean, it's hilarious, right? So you gotta block that out. You get up. But it's amazing because you get that win. Check.
Yep.
Oh, I got up. For me, it's a cold plunge. Okay, check. Got it done. Okay. And then it's okay, I get it's interesting because it's like you still have to like face each one of these things, right? So yeah, you got up.
Mhm.
But now you've got to get ready for the gym and go out the door for the gym. So it's another one of those things where you're like, okay, I got to go do this. And I'll find that every morning I've got to discipline that decision. But what's pretty remarkable is by the time I'm coming to the office, I've got 3 or 4 wins already. And it's like sales. We know that we've got to get the yeses coming,
Yeah.
right? Getting a few yeses in the conversation gets us into buying state. Well, to get into winning state, you've got to have some wins.
Yeah.
There was a time where I was just rolling out of bed because I was staying up late, whether I was burning the midnight oil working, right? And even if that was the case, you don't wake up with win.
No.
You wake up
You're
just
bitter.
rolling in. You're bitter. You're bitter.
You're bitter.
You're bitter. You're angry about it. You're rolling into the office like, I was up late last night, working on this stuff. I got to go back in now. There's no pause, right, to it. And then, the other part of it is, like what I found myself doing was instead of taking the wins in the morning, I take them at night. And what do you do when you take them at night? You just watch Netflix. You do whatever. You say, oh, I need some me time.
Yep.
Kids are finally to bed, whatever. I was stressed. I had a long day. So I'm just going to carve out this time. I'm going to steal this time. That's not a win, though.
You're kind of like in loser lane at that point.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, hey, I'm going to go get a snack. And then you're starting another movie at like 10 o'clock at night. And then it's this vicious circle.
It's a vicious cycle. And then again, it's how are you showing up to your job, your team, your company, right? Like, how are you positioning yourself for the biggest output you can produce? And it is a vicious cycle because one hurts the other and they start compounding. And then you start to feel really crappy about yourself. So it's like so funny to me because fitness is kind of stereotypical. It's kind of a buzz right now where it's like, oh yeah, I get up, I worked out,
I
and
get up at 2:30 a.m.
whatever.
Okay, good.
I mean, and for a long time, I watched that from the outside and just thought, like, I don't really see why that helps you make more money. I'm over here hustling and making money, but the reality is like burnout is real. Getting to a place you can hustle yourself, you can redline yourself,
Yep.
but there is such a cadence to when you have that time and that structure and you're actually treating your body right. Like it has a massive impact on the performance that you bring in every day.
Oh, I want to share that this you'll get a kick out of this. So when it gets hot here, okay, there's not really a whole lot you can do outside, right?
Yeah, we're in Arizona, so
Yeah.
like you can't do anything for at least 4 months out
No.
of the year. It's just completely off limits out there.
No. So last year I started this cardio quest and I have a mountain bike, nothing crazy. I'm not doing any Lance Armstrong type stuff. But I can pick up the trail by my house and I can go down and do like a 15, 20 mile little loop, okay? And I was doing that like 3 or 4 times a week in the morning, typically before 7 a.m. Because what would happen is I go on a bike ride, come home, protein shake, and then I'd go to the gym. Now here's what's something really fascinating, and I haven't been doing it because now people are gonna laugh if you're listening anywhere else in the country. Like if it's in the mid 60s, like that's
Nipply out here in Arizona.
it's a
That's
little
cold.
It's chilly and your eyes water, okay? Like don't be feeling sorry for me or anything. But usually once it hits 70, like I'm cool with that. Not only with the working out in the morning rituals and stuff, but here's what I was finding. On the bike path, I would say good morning to at least 25, 30 people. Dude, that was like a magical elixir because you're saying good morning. Okay. And I would say that to literally 15, 20, sometimes 30 people as I'm passing by. Hey, good morning. Oh, hey, some maybe old lady walk in and, she's like, oh, good morning. As I'm blowing by her. I noticed that that put me in this heightened state of like super gratitude, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was amazing and was like, I think my last ride was like early November and I've done some daytime when it's warmer out, but I haven't been doing that in the morning. And so I'm excited because in the next week or two I'll be able to do that. But that is something else that having that human contact in the morning is also important. Now, some people are like, I'm not a morning person. I talk to nobody until I wake up and blah, blah, blah. Because if you think about it, like on a normal morning, you're kind of by yourself for the most part. Give your wife a kiss, whatever. You go to the gym, you might see 2 or 3 or
Yeah, you
4
get your
people.
earbuds in,
Correct. But just being of service to others. Because how many people say good morning to you nowadays?
right, right.
Maybe someone in the office, but even on the outside, you say good morning to someone, they're like, excuse me?
Dude, it's ramping you up for the day, man. It gets that social component running. And like you said, that gratitude and that kind of giving nature. I mean, this is part of the game is like, how do you optimize, right? For the best possible performance you can have in your day to day, especially if you're leading other people.
and it's stuff around you.
Right.
Now, you notice we haven't talked about like, oh, you have to do this elaborate system and spend all this money. This is all free, okay?
Well, and I think that's the important part. I think that's something that is overlooked is the biggest limiting factor for a small business is going to be the founder's capacity.
Yep.
Because most of the decisions, most of the vision, most of like the goal setting is stemming from that founder.
Yeah.
And if they're in a place of feeling crappy about themselves or low energy or don't have the right mindset, like the company is like, it's a mirror. You will see that in the performance of the company. So most of this is like, it's easy to teach tactics. You can read a little bit, you can find out a model, you can watch a YouTube video on how you run a better marketing system or how you tweak your ads or whatever it is that you need to be working on. But it's this area of founder optimization, right? That comes from really weird areas. And sometimes it's blind spots that like most of us can't see. Again, back to coaching and where that third party can really bring a
Yep.
lot of insight, right? But I see you do a lot of cool things. Like you took your whole family and jumped out of an airplane,
Yeah.
right? Like that kind of stuff. Right? Like, how does that stuff impact you as an entrepreneur? I mean, I feel like getting yourself out of your comfort zone. Talk about comfort in business, like where that kind of plays a role, being challenged versus being in comfort.
See, comfort to me is like a danger zone. It's a danger zone because that little voice starts going, it's okay. Not that I'm an edgy person or that, oh, I got to always be going, but it's our God-given right to go all in, right? We're supposed to be 100%. I don't want to get up to the pearly gates someday and God says, hey, before you come in, I just want to show you the version you could have been. And it's some badass dude and, did all this good and helped a bunch of people.
What's crazy is you know that person already. You know that person, like they're in there. And so it's like the second you hear that, it's almost like, yeah, okay, like we got some work to do. We got to get on this because it's rewarding to become that person. I look at comfort, and I know this is part of your past too, dealing with addiction, getting sober 18 years ago. For me, addiction's been part of my journey too. And I honestly like comfort is one of those dangerous areas for me because it's its own drug.
Oh, 1000%.
It's this thing where if you have a little too much of it, what'll happen over time is it just starts to take over the mindset of seeking comfort, seeking comfort, right? And like I think it's hard to relate to sometimes super high performers because it almost feels like, well, when do you take a break? Right? Well, how do you enjoy life? Like this can't all be about
Right.
hard work all the time, right? And what I've seen is that discipline is where the most happiness has come from. So when we talk about like enjoying a life,
Mhm.
like I've been happier in my discipline than I
Yeah.
have when I'm not and I'm just seeking comfort, right? And comfort shows up in different ways when you're super disciplined and you're really holding yourself accountable to whether it's your routines, your goals, some of these other things. So, I mean, I guess just talk a little bit about, like, how on that point, like, how has this journey been being sober for 18 years? I mean, have you seen just, like, a completely different person come out of that?
Well, number 1, when I got sober, all the bad stuff started happening to me after I got sober.
Interesting,
All the bad
because
stuff.
you gotta confront you almost gotta confront.
Now, take in mind, obviously, I was in my wife's eyes, I was bad back when I was using and drinking. That
Yeah.
wasn't fun for her.
Right, right, right.
But then flip it forward, like losing everything, you know, um, mom dies of pancreatic cancer, we're getting sued because of, that was back when they said, "Oh yeah, if you have a second mortgage, they're not gonna come after you." Like, they're coming after you. That, business breakups, loss of money, like, dude, just one thing after the other. But I knew, like, if I'd go back out using or drinking again, that wouldn't serve me well. So I never, ever like that. God, number 1, number 2, sobriety, number 3, Dave, and then everything else falls into place after that. Because my sobriety comes first. Like, that is like, I don't hang out around dudes that drank. Like, I don't do that stuff anymore. When I'm sometimes there's some type of, function or something and there's alcohol, like, I don't care about any of that. But when I hear the same story coming from the guys and the gals that are a little buzzed and they're bragging about stuff or telling us, the 19th different version of the vacation that they went on because they're giddy and buzzed, like, I'm out. Like, I have 0 tolerance for that
Yeah.
because I would much rather you and I go work out for an hour, shoot the shit, and, talk about life and things that are going on versus go sit in some bar, or some party where everyone's getting loaded. Like, I'm just out on that.
It's pretty amazing actually, seeing that transition, in sobriety is you start to activate some different habits and, hitting the gym with a buddy, all of a sudden becomes the way you get high. It's, the endorphins, all the things you get from that
Right.
experience. And again, these are these kind of self-validating things that you do that make you feel really good naturally, right? And so yeah, I totally resonate with that, that you kind of easily start to be turned off by these activities that other people pursue, and it's not even a judgment, because 'cause we've been in those shoes,
Right.
right? But, I've realized too that one of the more fascinating things is you talked about how long it took to put together this disciplined routine, right? Like, you started writing in this journal, and it doesn't happen overnight. I think this is, like, something that like, it took me some time to learn, right? Is that you may have this vision that I want to change.
Mhm.
I want to be X, Y, and Z in my business. I want to be X, Y, and Z partner to my spouse. I want to be this type of father, whatever it is. It's it's pretty easy to get the vision and to be like, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
So tomorrow I'm gonna make the change. I'm gonna be that. That's not how it works. It is one building block after another. And it takes a lot of time for those blocks to actually build something, right? Like I it took me a long time, the morning routine even,
Mm.
years of optimization and just habit building on how to remove things out of the night routine, get that simplified, get the bedtime on time. And once that got locked in, it's like, okay, cool, that's in play now.
Right.
That's in cycle now.
Yep. You got the foundation built.
There's something running here,
Yep.
right? And now there's this other thing that I can add in and start running. And what happens is over the course of a year or 2, you're like, "Wow, look at this." Like, this is pretty much the version of the person that I was trying to be. It's
Mhm.
running now. But it takes that time and it takes that, like, delayed gratification on it, to actually get to that point.
Well, and again, you were white-knuckling that stuff. No one was pushing you and poking you.
Right.
See, it's stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like I have 3 grandchildren. Like, unfortunately, my parents did not like, like when someone gets up at an award ceremony, especially like in sports, you see a lot of it. It's like, I want to thank my parents for like I'm not gonna I wouldn't say something like that. Okay. Whereas now I have a chance to be able to turn around and show my kids and my grandchildren how is it a man is supposed to act, number 1.
It's huge.
How's a father supposed to act? How's a grandfather? So it's like this generational wealth, because I look at it as wealth, okay? If I can teach them the right things and what to do and how to act, that they can turn around and share that with their children and oh my God.
It's huge. It's huge. The impact that can have generationally on your family, but also on anybody that's around you, your team, your friends. I mean, like I've seen profound already in a very short period of time, people that will come back into your life and say like, "Hey, you really inspired me. Like
Yeah.
you made a change for me." Like
Yeah.
we're all looking for inspiration. And we're all watching each other and we're all trying to key in on like finding some little light, some little spark that can give us motivation to push. It's that's the crazy thing is you don't you're kind of doing it for yourself, but you don't realize how many eyeballs are actually
There's a lot of people, they're looking.
watching and they're
They're
looking
looking and watching.
a
And
hundred
and and
percent.
and again, it's like, I know if I can do it, I know that other person can do it.
Yep.
And sometimes you have to ask the right people to help you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Especially through sobriety and stuff like that. That's a tough deal, especially in today's world. You know what I mean? Like it's just
No, it's so socially embedded,
yeah,
it's so socially embedded. It's so interesting, like I just decided on a whim to stop drinking. Drinking wasn't really the thing for me as much, I did it socially but I just kind of as I got, off of an addiction with weed and marijuana, I kind of got to a point where I was like, well, why am I drinking? Like this probably could go too,
mm-hmm,
right? And what was so funny was for a while there in the first, few months of deciding not to drink, I would say to people, I'm not drinking right now. If I went, like, "Oh, I'm just not drinking right now,"
yeah,
to not have a drink. And what's crazy is after doing that, after having, let's say, 100 interactions where I would have normally had a drink
yeah,
with somebody, after saying no 100 times, all of a sudden that phrase changed to, "I don't drink." And it was believable.
mm-hmm,
Right? And so it's again to that point of like, we kinda gotta get into something and perform it for a while before it's real for us.
yeah,
And I think that's like such a simple example, but it's so powerful in business too, because we're all trying to improve the company that we're in or the leadership that we have. And I think it's really easy to just like see somebody that's at a level 10 in their career,
mm-hmm.
see the leader they are, and be like, oh, that I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that for my team. You go in and you try to do it, and it's like, that didn't work.
They'll look at you like, we just saw you half naked at the last outing, and you're gonna give us advice on working
100.
out and eating clean and not drinking?
Yep.
Like, you gotta live it.
You gotta live it.
You gotta live it.
You gotta live it, and you've gotta, like, find a way to just stay with it too. Like, it's not gonna feel normal at first, right? Like, whether it's the way that you wanna run a framework in your company or the discipline you wanna bring to yourself within your work or however you're doing this new habit, it takes time for even you to feel like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this is natural. This is the way I operate." And I think it's, like, pretty hard because those are little, like those are mini cycles, right? And I think a lot of people quit in those mini cycles
Oh, because it's hard.
constantly,
Yes,
constantly,
yes.
because they don't get the immediate
Nope.
result, right? It feels like, "Oh, well, that didn't work, so we'll just go like, we'll deviate from that." And you just stay in this plateaued state.
No, they treat it like they're buying something on Amazon, and it's gonna be here between the hours of 4 and 8 PM.
That's exactly
Like,
it.
stop.
That's exactly it.
Like, it doesn't happen that way.
That's exactly it. Like, again, great to get the inspiration, great to get the vision, but it's about implementation. It's about continuous work on that thing. And that's I think what separates some of the best business people from everybody else is they're willing to have delayed gratification on the tactics, the strategies, the things that they're trying to build. Muscle building is very similar. Like that's a multi-year goal,
Yep.
right? Like you're gonna go in there and you're gonna feel pain and you're gonna have to exhaust yourself and you're not gonna get results in 2 months.
No, and unfortunately, again, we're in this microwave minute society right now, the Amazons. Like, we could order from Dominic's and have food delivered here in 30 minutes and have lobster tail and steaks, like, right now. Like, everything is right now,
Yep.
and people are in this right now moment. It's not realistic. It's not realistic. These things take time.
They totally do, and I think that's, like, also the beauty of, like, building who you are over a lifetime. I mean, this is a lifetime quest, right? I mean, you're what, 56, 57, 57. Man, you look so for
Thank you.
57. But, it's like life is longer than I think a lot of people think it is, and it's shorter at the same time,
Goes quick.
it depends what you're looking at, whether you're looking at the age of your kids, it feels like, well, that went really fast, right? But when you think about like how long it takes to actually get good,
Mhm.
to master you, to master the business you're in, like I think that is such an important message for a lot of people to be hearing is like, look, it may take 10 years to make a business really successful. It's not a 1-year thing. You don't just find immediate success there. And that's kind of the problem is we hear all these stories of like overnight success stuff.
We'll go on TikTok. There's 3 easy hacks.
3 easy
Yeah,
hacks. Right. Everything is 3 easy hacks.
3 easy hacks. And
Right.
and so they try those 3 easy hacks.
They
It
don't
doesn't work.
Right.
Well, it doesn't work.
Right. Right.
I was supposed to be a millionaire by noon.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
So how do you get somebody to kind of like see, what is there any frameworks or anything that you use that kind of like gives you that commitment over the long term? Like, do you set goals that are long-term view and do you just kind of like work at them daily? Like, how do you kind of keep yourself in the mindset of like building over time towards something that you're trying to achieve?
When COVID happened, okay, we were all fixated on, our yearly goals and what we're going to do in sales and all that stuff. Well, what COVID taught me was the world shut down.
Yeah.
This was the first go around for everyone. The world shut down. And we didn't know if it was going to be like one of these movies that we've seen and, the world's going to, everyone's going to disappear, or we didn't know what was going to happen. And then after a couple months, obviously everything loosened up, and especially with us being in Arizona, like the light switch went off and real estate just went through the roof. Okay.
Man, what a great run real estate had there.
But what that taught me was you're not guaranteed anything, because you can fixate on the future of what you want your goals to be. You can look in the past and say, oh, I did this and that last year. I'm going to do this year. And, you start getting yourself future, past, and we forget about what's right in front of us
Today.
today. I typically only like to look 30 to 60 days forward. That's it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I do have a goal in mind. Oh, we're going to sell X amount of houses, or we're going to do X amount of volume, whatever the case may be. But I'm staying present, because what I have found is that when you stay present right here and now, you can see all the opportunities around you much easier than if you were to fixate on that end goal at the end of the year. Opportunities are going to pop up all around you, but you're like, no, get out of my way. I'm fixated on the end result. And so what I have found is that it's much easier for me to adapt, because some opportunity may pop up that I wasn't expecting, that I
All
look
the
at
time.
it and go, well, this is going to get me way past whatever goal I had. You know what I mean? So it keeps me in this open mind versus closed mind, to where it's like tunnel vision. And then all of a sudden nothing else matters except this goal. Well, missed out on all these other opportunities.
That's super interesting, because everybody always talks about 10-year goals, 5-year goals, even 3-year goals, where they're like, that's where the human mind can really focus in on is 3-year goals. But I really like that methodology because it feels like those are the controllables, right? And also, like, that's got to be really motivating because you feel like, oh, I'm working towards this thing that's right here, right? And like, those are going to stack
Yeah.
to get you where you're trying to go. Um, I love that. I usually run 90-day cycles for myself where I'm trying to pick out like the best way I know how to do it is like, okay, where do I want to be in 10 years? Okay, well, that's just pretty pictures, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just like, okay, everybody's got a beautiful vision for what
Yeah.
10 years can be. Okay, cool. Well, okay, like what does 1 year look like? Like, how do we get from where we are now to somewhere transformed in 1 year? Okay, cool. And then what does a 90-day target look like that could have me still believe this 1 year vision is possible?
Right.
Right? What do I need to do to prove to myself that's still achievable? And from there, you can break that thing down into 12 weeks. Okay, what would I need to do over the next 12 weeks to have that outcome?
Yep.
Right? And so I love that game of playing the short term. Yes, it's guided by some long-term stuff, but I can't agree with you more. Like my 3-year targets have never been hit because there's always adjustments that come into play, better opportunities, pivots, but it's just almost unrealistic to be living in.
So watch this. You know how I was saying earlier, like, no one really gave me advice and so on and so forth. So here's an experience that I had that changed the way I think about that. And I want you to keep an open mind on this. So December 25th of 2021, my wife checked me into the hospital because I had COVID really bad. I didn't think I was going to leave.
Boy, that
There was
changes the plans.
3 or 4 days where I was so looped out. Like they didn't put me on a ventilator. Okay.
Dude, but even checking in has got to be like,
I was so like out of it, and literally it took about 3 or 4 days until the medicine started to kick in, and then I started like the lights came back on. But 3 days prior to the going in, like when they put the little what's the thing called? They do the oxygen level,
oh yeah.
the little thing on there. I was like in the 45, 50 range. Like
That ain't good.
I was kind of like in a blackout drunk. That's how I don't remember. I don't remember going really into the hospital. So I had that experience of like the 3-year plan and the 5-year plan, that was all out the door because I didn't know I was going to make it out. So now I look at it as like, this is a gift for me to be here right now. I'm just happy to be here.
How about?
I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but guess what? I'm here right now. Let's make the most of it.
No,
And so I've been operating in that mindset now because people are like, oh, aren't you worried? I'm like, is anyone going to die? Like what we do, we're not doctors. So what we do and the decisions we make and the things and the problems, like no one is going to die. To me, that would be like worst case. Like, hey, man, if we do this business deal, you could die. Well, let's talk about this. I want the best success ratio, right? But that's not the case. And so people get so wrapped up in all this stuff. It's like, just chill, relax.
Dude, I actually resonate with that quite a bit. I've seen 2 different styles of kind of driven people, right? One of them is very fear-based,
Mm,
and like they build up the scenario of what goes wrong, right? And
yeah,
like they're running from that,
yeah,
and they use it. I
yeah,
mean, that is everything for them to stay motivated. And then there's that other mindset of like more of that gratitude, like optimism, like, hey, like, what if everything went right? Right? What if we like actually achieve this thing that we wanted to achieve? What if
yeah,
it's even better than that? Right?
yeah.
Like just being more optimistic. And I feel like that's I think it's a more powerful place to work from.
It's usually operate in that mode.
Right, right. I mean, wow, that's crazy though.
Yeah,
What a perspective.
that's a wake up.
That's massive perspective. I mean, the world is changing dramatically, right? We're scared about AI coming in. There's just a lot of changes I feel like are happening. And maybe that's always been the case, right? A lot of uncertainty, a lot of changes. But I think more now there's a lot of questioning on like what is the future going to look like? And to me, I think there's a lot of people out there that are thinking about entrepreneurship. They're clear on the fact that things are changing. People aren't working at jobs for 50 years, 40 years and just retiring, right? And so with all of this, like, is there any advice you would have to somebody that's like really at the beginning of the journey? How does somebody take the risk of betting on themselves? Like how what's the kind of advice you would give somebody that's either thinking about going into business for themselves or has really just launched into business themselves and is kind of in that imposter syndrome, kind of doubting themselves? Um, how would you advise them to kind of get past some of that and take those first steps?
I think number one, it's who is in your immediate corner? Because if you're sharing all this with your family and friends and they all have jobs, you're preaching to the wrong choir.
Powerful. Yeah.
You are going to have to separate yourself from them in a way that is not, I'm not saying cut off your friends or cut off your family, but you're going to have to keep them arm length distance because they're going to do one of two things. They're going to laugh at you if you succeed, and they're going to laugh at you if you fail. So you got to keep that in mind. Okay. And that's where you're going to have to then figure out a different group of people to be around because they are not going to be the best advocates. Yeah. Oh, Dave, but it's different. My friends are different. My family's different. No, they're not. Because after getting your ass kicked for 6 months and you're on that cutting edge, they're going to say stuff to you like, well, why don't you go get a regular job and stop this? What are you doing, honey?
They
What
don't
are
want to see you in
you?
pain.
You're miserable. You're working all these hours. Go get a regular job, something with health benefits. Your friends starting to whisper that in your ear. Next thing you know, you're starting to self-doubt yourself and you quit. It's going to happen over and over and over. And a lot of times, I see this with salespeople and I see this with new entrepreneur spirit. If you're hanging out around a crowd that has nothing to do with any of that, you're in the wrong crowd. You're not going to get the support you're looking for. No one is going to be cheering you on to succeed. It just doesn't work that way.
That's funny. It's like the first time that the home court advantage is not an advantage, right? Like the home crowd is
I've
actually not what you need.
I've seen it happen at least a dozen times with salespeople where they're just right. I'm like, oh my God, little Sarah's doing good. Oh, little Billy's doing better. And they're right on that cusp to get right over it. Yeah, I was talking to my parents or, I was talking to my boyfriend. He thinks I should get a regular job because of the hours and and they quit on themselves.
Yep.
I hate seeing that.
Yeah. No, that's
They
so
buy
true.
into the, you know what, my old version, it's safe there. And
So true.
it's sad to see.
So true. What's your take on imposter syndrome in general? I think a lot of people struggle with that, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs actually are kind of wrestling with imposter syndrome.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's alive and well. I
Yeah.
get it. I get spikes of it.
Yeah. We all
You
do.
know,
We all do.
it's like I just it's weird. It's like shit 57. Like I should be, I should be able to handle all this stuff. And sometimes it's intimidating, I think.
How helpful to hear that, right? From somebody who's as successful, as put together, that's seen so much, like to still know that that's kind of like part of the human condition almost.
Yeah, because what's the flip side of that? Oh, ego? Like you got to kind of find this little happy medium, right? And again, I go through that. And there's other days where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Other days, oh, I think I know what I'm doing. And then do people really want to hear from me? It's like you start to question all this. And it's like, I think you have to follow your heart and follow God for that guidance, right? Don't worry about what the naysayers say. Get off of social media because social media will spin you. There's a 19-year-old kid that rented a Lamborghini, giving it business and life advice. And you're second guessing yourself going, man, this kid sounds really good. Like, but he's 19. Like, he was just eating Cheerios and watching cartoons 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So I think that's something where, again, being around the right people and making sure you are you're confident in who you are as a person is first and foremost, you know.
I love that. I love that. I mean, it's kind of like, the biggest enemy sometimes is ourselves, and it's hard to spot. It's hard to see it. And, it's kinda crazy actually that the person that's kind of rooting against you the most is you. That's actually the one that if anybody is judging you more, like you're worried about whether it's trying this thing or putting yourself out there or, embarking on a new challenge, like you're the main person
Yeah.
probably that's sitting there going, "Oh, you can't do that."
It's almost like we revert to, like, back when we were in high school and you were trying to, like, get in with the new crowd or something, like the cool kids or something, and you just have that.
It's so amazing. It's amazing you bring up high school. I think that's a great thing because look at it. You know what so many people feel is, "Oh, if I knew what I know now then, oh, I would have asked that girl out. Why didn't I have the confidence? Why was I so concerned
Right.
about that?" It's so easy to analyze that. Well, you're in the same position right now.
No.
Right now. You've got that same opportunity in front of you every single day. I think that's such a powerful way to kind of remind yourself that it's the same mechanism at play that's doubting you,
You're
that's
just 30
preventing
years
you.
older.
You're just a full-blown
Shit,
adult
my
now.
my 40th reunion, I just saw something on a Facebook group. Our 40th reunion's coming up.
I've never been to one reunion.
I think I'm gonna show up to this one.
You know what?
40 years.
That's a
Like,
great thing.
what?
Like, you know what? Yeah, I mean, gosh, that says a lot, I think. Like, did you go to it, your 10-year, your 20-year?
No.
Yeah, at some point you gotta face that
I'll show up. They'll
and
be like,
walk in
"Who
the
are
room.
you?"
Yeah.
Like, "Ba-bam."
It doesn't really matter who I am, does it?
Right.
That's wild. That's wild. Well, dude, this has been awesome, man. Really, really, really cool conversation. I do like to ask these questions because I think it can be really helpful. Number one, what is the best book that you've read that you would recommend to an entrepreneur?
Oh, I would say Tim Grover Winning.
Okay.
Tim Grover Winning. That sums it all up right there. Especially if you have an athlete background or if you've played sports or if you just have that competitive spirit. Winning. Tim Grover.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. Dave,
Cool.
this has been killer.
Absolutely,
Thanks.
Ben. Thanks for having me today.
Of course.